G'day Earthlings, Dr. Rank here, and welcome to Gaming Legends, the show that is actively against the concept of speedrunning. Back in July 2022, I did a challenge run in Spyro the Dragon. Now it's time to crank up the difficulty in the sequel. Can you beat Spyro 2 Ricto's Rage without charging? No, it's not called Gateway to Glimmer, that is a terrible name. The rules are mostly the same as last time. We're trying to beat the Reignited Trilogy version without ever pressing the charge button. All non-cosmetic cheat codes are also banned, but wearing sunnies is required because it looks cool. And finally, since it's actually relevant this time, using other save files for New Game Plus strategies is banned. This notably includes the permanent Super Flame power-up you get for reaching 100% completion, which carries over to all Spyro 2 save files. The only ways to play without it are to either play on a fresh user account, or to manually disable it with the code shown on screen. We can use New Game Plus techniques if we can obtain them on our Chargeless save file, but otherwise they're not allowed. Without further ado, let the run begin! Compared to Spyro 1, the progression system has received a complete overhaul. Instead of being a pure collectathon, the game is structured around missions. Each level has a main mission that awards a talisman, and we need all the talismans in a home world before we can unlock the next. Think of them like the crystals in Crash Bandicoot.
Of course.
There are also plenty of side missions which give orbs upon completion. These are used to unlock specific areas in the home worlds, including the final boss, so we'll be gathering as many of them as we can. There are some orbs though that are impossible to obtain on a first visit of the level. For example, Glimmer has one that requires a Super Flight power-up, which is inaccessible because Spyro has yet to wrap his head around the complex technology of ladders. Gems are still here, and while most of them are just lying around the level waiting for us, some are inside jars. If a jar is made of iron, it won't react to Spyro's fire breath and is thus unbreakable. Since gems act as actual currency in this game, we need to be picky about our purchases lest we find ourselves short on cash. There are ways to skip the bridge in Glimmer, but they all require either charging or New Game Plus, so we will be forking over 100 gems here. One place you won't find gems in this game though are inside enemies. Defeating one releases a spirit particle, which is used to unlock the power-up gates in that level. Unfortunately, some levels are more murderous than others in a Chargeless run. Enemies with armor or shields are fireproof, which makes them invincible. In Spyro 1, we could still take out shielded enemies by waiting for them to strike first, but the Tikis in Idle Springs aren't stupid enough to expose themselves. We can still get the talisman by taking out the big guys, but this doesn't let us reach the spirit quota for the gate in this level. Not that it matters, since it's a supercharge gate, and while you can technically initiate it without the charge button, it won't last more than a millisecond. So it looks like we probably can't get the orb from this area. The other orb in Idle Springs requires us to travel through an underwater tunnel. While we can pay for swimming lessons in the Summer Forest homeworld, there's just one problem.
Great! Okay, when you jump in the water, you can use your left stick to move around the surface. Use the charge button to dive underwater. When you're underwater, use the jump button to paddle and charge button to charge.
Yep, you heard that correctly. In order to dive below the water's surface, we need to press the charge button. Even if you want to make some sort of semantic argument that submerging shouldn't count as charging, the action will transition into a charge immediately with no reliable way to stop it. So for all intents and purposes, we can't swim. Which is a problem for Summer Forest itself, as another underwater passage prevents us from getting into the castle interior. There's no way around this path without New Game Plus shenanigans, meaning the second half of Summer Forest and all the levels within it are inaccessible. You might be yelling at me to just teleport to the later levels through the guidebook, but that only works for levels you've already been to. With only 3 talismans available, it looks like this is the end of the Spyro 2 Chargeless run.
But not for long!
You see, all the footage you've seen so far has been from the Nintendo Switch version of the Reignited Trilogy, because that's what I used for the Spyro 1 run and I wanted to be consistent. However, the colorblind programmer at Vicarious Visions apparently has a brother at Toys for Bob who was given the incredibly important task of making sure the Switch ports had terrible loading times. This was done in order to patch out one specific glitch that would have been incredibly useful for us. So I bought and booted up the PC version where we can perform the wrong warp glitch. Head through the entrance to Glimmer and pause the game on the exact frame that Spyro touches the portal. If you did it right, you should see the exit level option appear. Selecting it will make the game try to load Glimmer and Summer Forest at the same time. What happens next depends on what the game feels like. If the game is feeling naughty, it will spit you back out the Glimmer portal with the loading screen wind still active. This happens because the Glimmer outro cutscene played, which happens seemingly at random. But if the game is feeling nice, you'll exit through the Ocean Speedway portal instead, bypassing the underwater tunnel entirely. Unfortunately, the footage you're watching right now is not from the original run, because apparently my computer decided to only record audio for the entire second half of Summer Forest. I decided to enter Ocean Speedway itself, both to get its gems and orb, and so I'd have a fast travel point if I needed it later. Unlike the equivalent levels in Spyro 1 though, it wasn't a total pushover. One of your objectives here is to take out all the cars which you'd normally supercharge through. You can still hit them with your flame breath, but the hitbox is a little wonky. I typically try to aim for the cow catchers, which I only just realized exist.
But I don't catch cows, sir. Don't be funny, snapped the policeman.
You'll hit them more reliably while grounded, which is obviously much slower than just flying along the track. I recommend going for the cars last in the route so you have more of a time buffer if things go wrong. Hurricos doesn't have any problems getting the talisman, though it's still harder since we can't take out the robots. The only orb we can get here is the Lightning Stone mission. The other two require us to destroy some giant windmills in order to reach the high points of the level, which we can't do without the supercharge. Aquaria Towers is almost entirely underwater, but not when the level starts. The whole gimmick with this level is that you have to flood the rooms by hitting switches, which automatically puts you in an underwater swimming state. As long as you never surface, you're free to explore the level as much as you want. That said, the level does force you to briefly jump out of the water and then back in partway through, which for us results in a soft lock. The only way out of this situation is to pause and quit. Fortunately, there's a relatively simple skip we can do at the start of the level. Just above the door to tower number 4 is a very thin, invisible platform we can stand on. From there, we can do a well-timed glide and hover to the above ledge, where the talisman awaits us patiently. Sunny Beach is even more saturated, and there's no way to get under this water. So instead, we'll be going around it. Head over to this turtle in the back corner, and flame him in just such a way that he goes down the steps while partially clipping through the wall. Once he's down far enough, position Spyro on the corner of the step, and he should hopefully be pushed out of bounds. Be careful where you swim out here, since there are some areas where you'll just fall into the kill plane. But with proper routing, you can skip straight to the final room. You might have noticed we left the Turtle Kids behind, but don't worry, King Fromit is a terrible babysitter. With the first 6 talismans in hand, we can proceed to fight Crush with almost no effort and move on to Autumn Plains. All footage from this point recorded successfully the first time, and thus is from the original run unless otherwise specified. The first thing we do here is unlock the ability to climb ladders, something we can do with just the left stick. In addition to allowing access to the second half of Autumn Plains, this allows us to backtrack and get more orbs from Glimmer and Summer Forest. As for the levels within Autumn Plains, Crystal Glacier has no issues with any of its missions, so we pretty much play it casually. Skelos Badlands has these lava monsters that are completely fireproof, but that doesn't mean we can't kill them. Rocks spawn in this level, which can be spat out into other enemies, taking them out in one hit regardless of immunity. We can even use them to destroy iron jars without charging, with only the reinforced chest being immune to it. For that one, we can just use the rocket as intended. The lizard minigame was technically harder since we can't move as fast as usual, but even round 2 was perfectly doable. So we can actually get 100% on this level. Zephyr has a native Super Flame power-up within the level, and the Super Flame is strong enough to destroy even reinforced chests from a distance. Unfortunately, the time limit combined with our slow movement makes it unreliable to take everywhere, but we've got something even better. The Romeo and Juliet mission revolves around using magic seeds to spawn platforms in different spots. These seeds are infinitely replantable and, more importantly, can break iron jars when spat out. This works even better than the rocks since seeds aren't destroyed in the process, letting us pick it back up immediately and repeat for another 100% clear. Scorch has another Super Flame, and this time we can take it pretty much everywhere thanks to the level's small size and the shortcut by the drawbridge. The only thing we can't do here is the monkey mission, since the monkeys don't care if you try to commit arson.
Seymour! The house is on fire!
No, Mother, it's just the Northern Lights.
It is technically possible to knock the monkeys down with Super Flame, but power-ups wear off instantly when talking to NPCs, and the minigame won't initiate until we talk to Hunter. Speaking of Hunter, his mission in Icy Speedway isn't even accessible since he apparently found a way to make fireproof igloos. Shady Oasis tasks us with escorting Shorty through the level by feeding him berries.
Here we go!
Any enemy that stands in Mega Shorty's path won't be standing for very long, and anyone he misses can still be taken out by flaming them from behind. One of the orbs requires us to come back with a new ability later, and the other tasks us with chasing thieves. Outrunning them isn't an option, but is also optional. At the top of the level is a rock we can spit at the thieves from a distance, letting us bank the orb easily. Magma Cone and Fracture Hills both feature Earthshapers as the primary enemy, and unfortunately, they're completely fireproof. This is less of an issue in the latter since they're mostly out of the way, though it does prevent us from getting any orbs here. In Magma Cone though, they often block the path directly, forcing us to find ways to jump around them. Since they're the only enemy in this level, we're essentially forced to be a pacifist, which also blocks off the Lava Monster mission. The Crystal Popcorn minigame is also harder due to our reduced speed, but both rounds are just barely possible. Then there's Breeze Harbor, located on the beautiful shores of hell. The whole gimmick of this level is that we have to light the fires to power up the machinery to progress. However, the land blubbers are making an active effort to extinguish those fires the exact moment we get them lit. What's more, the cowards prefer to travel by bucket, so setting them on fire isn't an option. So taking the first whirlwind up to the level proper doesn't look promising. It is possible to skip straight to the end of the level by gliding over to the ship, landing on the hook of the portside anchor, and using several back-to-back perfect hovers to climb up the chain. From there, you could jump onto the nearby pipe, get onto the roof of the ship, and jump straight to the platform with the talisman. There's only one problem. This strategy requires you to be good at video games. In literally hundreds of attempts, I never made it onto the anchor chain. But I had another idea. The whirlwind still activates when the fire is lit, so we might be able to use it if we get there fast enough. After some experimentation, I've found that if a landblubber hits you with their attack, they have a lengthy taunt animation, during which they're not allowed to spray water at anything. If we let the further landblubber return to their spawn point and light the fire just before we get hit by the closer one, we have just barely enough time to reach the whirlwind by gliding repeatedly along the pipe. The second boiler is much easier since we can fight firefighters with fire. The third one though is a nightmare. The machinery takes much longer to properly start up and the landblubbers are positioned much less favourably. There is a cannon nearby that could theoretically take them out, but getting a clear shot from here is impossible. I was starting to lose hope, but then I started testing on the Switch version with the permanent Super Flame, and this happened.
Come again for Big Fudge?
Turns out, when you kill a fodder creature, such as this clam, their corpse is capable of defeating any enemy it touches while airborne. I went back to the PC to verify this was possible with the normal flame, and sure enough, it was. There was still the other guy to deal with though, and I only had the one clam to work with, which doesn't respawn. Unless, of course, you die a painful death, which respawns all fodder regardless of their respawn properties. I recommend making a trip to Zoe in between so the first landlubber's death is saved. The second is still a bit far away, but we can close the gap by literally pushing the clam towards them. Get it just past the fire, light it to bring the landlubber over, and take your shot. You're now free to proceed to the final checkpoint. The last fire was too cumbersome for me to light, but we can reach the chain of the starboard anchor from here, which is much easier to climb than the port side. Once you've done that, just get on the roof as mentioned earlier, and the talisman is yours. With all 14 talismans in our possession, we can proceed to fight Gulp, who puts up a bit more of a fight than Crush. Instead of attacking him directly, you use the items spawned by the pterodactyls to fight him. However, the first of those items is an iron barrel, and the only way to use an iron barrel is to charge into it. The pterodactyls will refuse to spawn anything else until Gulp takes at least one hit. Luckily, the game only cares that the barrels blow Gulp up. It doesn't care who does the blowing. Lure Gulp into running towards a barrel, and there's a semi-random chance that he'll get caught in the blast. The physics are extremely wonky, but if you can lure him into a group of barrels, you'll have much more success. Once you land that first hit, bombs and rockets will start spawning, and you can use them to finish him off. Now that we're in the winter tundra, we can spend 1,000 gems to unlock the final new ability, the Head Bash. This is essentially a ground pound, capable of destroying almost anything you normally need charging for. More importantly though, the Head Bash allows Spyro to dive below the surface of water, finally letting us swim properly. It's still not going to break any land speed records, but it's still enough to 100% Cloud Temples and Metropolis, and get the 40 orbs necessary to challenge the final boss, Ripto. The first two phases are centered around collecting orbs to use as power-ups. The power-up you get depends on the color of the third orb, and if that orb is blue, you'll get a supercharge power-up. You can sidestep this issue by simply waiting for a red or green orb to spawn instead. Once you get to phase 3, you'll get the Firefly power-up, which lets you take down Ripto as the devs intended. With Ripto taking a relaxing lava bath and Moneybags happily providing a refund, the Spyro 2 Uncharged run is officially conquered!
But not for long!
As a bonus challenge, we're going for 100% completion, meaning we're going to track down all 10,000 gems and all 64 orbs in the game. The gems are hardly worth mentioning since their containers can be destroyed with the Head Bash. The only exception is underwater jars, which require the Super Flame to break. While it is provided in some levels, it's not always accessible. Aquaria Towers, for example, doesn't provide us with enough enemies to unlock it, since a few of them are already submerged by the time we reach them. Many of the orbs are also straightforward, though there are some standouts. The Scarecrow mission in Robotica Farms makes it difficult to flame all the bugs quickly enough, but they only move clockwise around the field, so we can just go against the traffic. The Turtle Rescue missions in Sunny Beach were especially tough. The Head Bash is too slow to be reliable here, and the Flame doesn't send the turtles nearly as far. It's basically a game of horizontal whack-a-mole, where I had to divide my attention between the turtles closest to the cauldron and the ones near the ledge. It'll be extremely stressful, but I assure you it is eventually possible. Not every orb is possible though. The Sparkplug Thieves in Mystic Marsh are just too fast for us. I was able to catch one of them by sneaking up from behind, but only the one. I tried spitting the trading quest items at them, but they did absolutely nothing. It's finally time to use the most famous glitch in the Spyro Reignited Trilogy, Speedway Storage. Head to the entrance to Gulp's Overlook, jump in, and do the same frame-perfect pause trick as before. While the cutscene is playing, you'll hear yourself being spat out the portal to either Metro or Icy Speedways. Press L2 to center the camera, tap down right once, then hold down to hopefully enter the portal. Once you're in the speedway, deliberately crash into the water, then select retry and skip the cutscene in quick succession. If you do it right, you'll spawn in the gulp fight. Kill yourself once, and when you respawn, you'll have infinite flight. Once you've got the glitch active, pause the game, select the guidebook, and fast travel to whichever level you want. From now on, you'll have infinite flight permanently in every level until you turn the game off. But I'm not interested in a simple speed boost. If we head to Dragon Shores, fly up, out, and under the stage, we can enter the permanent Super Flame room from out of bounds, bypassing the 100% requirement. With this baby in our possession, not only can we snipe any enemy we see, but we can also destroy any container or door in our path. Even the Earthshapers in Fracture Hills are no match for it, which actually lets you get 2 orbs at the same time. It can also destroy most objects that you'd normally need Supercharge for, so we can 100% both Idle Springs and Horrorcoast with ease. The only orb we can't get even with this power is the Tractor Path mission in Robotica Farms. You need to clear the entire path, and while you can use the Super Flame to take out the pumpkins, the barn doors are much sturdier. We can get the gems inside the barn by walking off the roof out of bounds and flying up to them, but then we're stuck inside. This orb is locked behind literal doors with charge-shaped keyholes. Though the bonus challenge is technically a failure, we did still manage to get 63 orbs, all 10,000 gems, and a completion percentage of 99%, which is still an A+, and plenty of reason to celebrate. Before I go, shout out to Easyscape, whose videos on beating the game without swimming and without collecting gems were used as reference. If you want to watch the run, you can check out the archive footage in the description. Also, an important announcement. Starting on the 26th of February at noon Queensland time, I'll be live streaming a spinless run of Crash Bandicoot: The Wrath of Cortex. Be sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss it. That's all for now, and I will see you down under.